This week in the Spooky Coop, episode 41, well accompanied by wild dogs and exotic birds, Paul and Michelle unravel the chilling story of Karl Denke, a seemingly harmless old man from Munsterberg who harbored a gruesome secret. Hi everyone, I'm Paul.
And I'm Michelle.
And you're in
the Spooky Coop.
Welcome to the Spooky Coop. Hope you're not chicken. Hello, Michelle.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Oh, it's going just fine in our wonderful land of the zoo.
I'm just hoping spring comes. It's been a little warmer up here in New Hampshire.
And here we are recording the day before spring on the 19th
Yeah,
of
isn't
March.
it funny when you can go outside and it's 40 degrees and you feel like you don't need a coat?
And then the week later, there's a foot of snow.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
For those of you who hail from New England who are listening to us, we don't need to explain any of that to you.
There's an old saying in New England, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, it could be winter, summer, fall. And
all in one day.
All in one day. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our 41st episode of Spooky Coop.
Wait till it's 410.
Oh, my God. Hard to think.
41.
Hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're the podcast where we dive into the weird, the paranormal, and the downright creepy. I'm Paul.
I'm Michelle, and we're your host and fellow spooky enthusiast. Whether it's ghosts, aliens, true crime, or unsolved mysteries, we're here to explore the dark corners of history and share the strangest stories we can dig up.
And today, we're digging up. We're kicking things off with a truly bone-chilling case. It's the story of Karl Denke, also known as the Cannibal of Munsterberg.
Sounds like a cheese.
Not to be confused with Munster cheese or anything else edible, but Karl did have an unusual dietary preference.
Karl Denke, name may not be famous, but as some serial killers, you never hear of, like, the Denke killer. At least I never did.
Or the Denk killer. Sorry.
But his crimes were just as horrific. If we run back to like the 20th century and uncover the grisly tale of this like ordinary guy, at least he seemed so, who harbored a dark and sinister secret.
How dark was it?
It was so dark that stars came through it.
Like a black hole.
I was thinking more like the night sky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The stars don't get through black holes. Doesn't black holes suck the stars up?
They do.
Yep, there you go.
Just like dark beings, they all suck.
They suck, yep.
Yeah. Anyway, Karl was born in 1860 in what was then known as Munsterberg, a small town in Silesia.
That's how you say that.
I think. I don't know. I'm making it up as we go because my German is
just as good as your Italian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See. It's now known as a Zibais or Zybici. I don't know. Zybais, Poland. Sorry if we have to laugh at this because if you take anything like this too seriously after 100 years, I mean, it's gruesome stuff. He was described as a quiet and unassuming man and someone you wouldn't even look twice at when you passed him on the street. Those are the worst ones, yeah.
Yeah, those are the worst ones.
And
until you go in their house and they're boiling head stew.
I think he was the one who came up with the phrase, you need a hobby.
Ooh. Yeah, he ran a modest shop. He sold leather goods like belts and suspenders and shoelaces. He even rented rooms to travelers. I would not go there. His neighbors said that he was like really kind-hearted. They said he was kind of an oddball though, and that he gave food and shelter to people who were like beggars and didn't have money. And, you know, like he was thought of as a just a really nice guy, and his leather work was supposedly really nice and really good. I guess it had a humanitarian, or at least a human aspect to it.
But behind that helpful facade was something far more sinister.
Ba-da-da.
As you allude to, the horrors only came to light in December 1924.
When you were buying your Christmas presents.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to buy one for Bob, but instead I bought one of Bob. No, sorry.
These horrors came to light in December of 1924 when a man stumbled into the local police station. He was bleeding and he was frantic, and he claimed that Denke had attacked him with an axe.
It's always the axe. You know, it's like... Anyway, that man was...
Faster than a knife.
I guess
if it's used improperly, you might have to stab someone 70 times before they stop moving. An axe one time, and...
No, Lizzie Borden had to use it... 40. She had to give her... 40.
40?
Yeah. And then she had...
She had a bad aim.
Probably, yeah.
Didn't research
Either
enough.
that or she was really enjoying it.
That could have been it, too.
Yeah, if it was really her. Anyway, Vincent Oliver, perhaps Denke's most Denke's? I said Denke's, it's Denke's. Most famous victim, not because he died, but because he survived. Oliver had been lured into his home under the pretense of receiving a warm meal and shelter. And, probably more. Once inside, he attacked him with this small axe. It was only like this big. Anyway, he attacked him with an axe, right? Miraculously, Oliver managed to fight back and he escaped the house, running right to the police station because he was smart. He ran to the police station instead of like in the movies where he runs into the shed where the guy stores all his axes.
With all the axes and everything hanging there, the tornado comes along and slices and dices them. Mm-hmm. And, you can hear the sound effects of the howling in the distance. Ow. Don't get a husky, guys. Don't get anything with husky in it.
No, do.
Yes,
if you do, get it from us.
His escape was the key.
Leave it.
I'm not cutting any of that. No, his escape was the key that unraveled Denke's gruesome crimes. When the police searched Denke's home, they found a nightmare beyond comprehension. Inside his home, they discovered carefully labeled jars filled with human flesh, bones stripped of meat, and even a ledger listing the names of his victims, over 40 in total.
Let's talk about some of those victims. Many of his victims were vagrants, travelers, or people who lived on the fringes of society. One of those victims were laborers, or a particular laborer named Franz Ness. He invented the Loch Ness Monster. He was a drifter who had come to Denke's home looking for shelter. He was lured in with the promise of labor for food. Honestly, I just would have done, hey, I want food. Anyway, but he never left. His remains were found meticulously processed. His bones were boiled and stripped clean. Do you know what? Could you imagine walking in and seeing a jar that said Ness bones, Ness nose?
Now, I know for a
Ness
fact
ankles.
he did not invent the Loch Ness Monster.
Are you sure?
No.
No, you're not sure? Then he did invent it.
He did not.
How do you know?
In fact, I have good...
You invented it? Is that how you know?
I have good word from a 7.5-foot lizard that they have done research from space.
Oh, yeah, right.
And they've discovered that it is an odd wave anomaly that is, in fact, Loch Ness, because they can't find it.
Yeah, right. So what you're telling me is that there's a 7-foot lizard in Loch Ness.
No, that's on a spaceship. Anyway,
okay.
He works with the tiny little guys with the big eyes. Anyway,
who swim in Loch Ness.
They do not swim well. They tip over, feet up in the air. Lizard man, save us. But we digress.
Always.
Always. Another tragic case was of Karl Denke's victims was that of a young woman, only identified in Denke's ledger by her first name, Marie. It's believed she was a beggar passing through town. Neighbors recalled seeing her enter Denke's home, but never saw her again.
They must be watching his door.
Yeah, vagrants go in, but they don't go out. The horrifying part of all of this was that some of her skin was found tanned and fashioned into leather strips.
Did they label it?
I don't know.
Did it say made by Marie?
Made of Marie.
Made of Marie.
The finest leather. Fine Polish leather.
Marie, I don't think that's a Polish name.
So let's move on.
I would like a belt from Marie. I would like suspenders from
Sam's Suspenders.
Sam's Suspenders, and I would like a wallet from John.
And
as a matter of fact,
Bob's belt.
Actually, I want a Sheldon suitcase. It starts as a wallet, but if you rub it real hard, you get a suitcase.
Go on to the next victim.
There was also a case of a teenage boy named Johann who was reportedly one of his youngest victims. He had run away from home and sought refuge in Denke's home. I'm so sorry. Anyway, he was brutally killed and his bones were found amongst the neatly stacked remains. So you had Johann's bones. I wonder if they ever rebuilt their skeletons.
Probably.
Yeah.
To what extent they ever could. In fact, I think there's pictures online that you can go see from the crime scene that have been preserved and digitized. And they show all the neatly stacked bones and how he had things aligned and labeled. The pickled jars of human flesh. It's
flesh.
It's quite harrowing.
You know, my grandmother used to eat pickled pig's feet.
Yeah?
And pickled pig snout. I don't know how she did it. She used to eat it, like, take it out of the jar and throw it into, like, soup and stuff.
Was she pregnant when she did that?
No, she was old.
She was old, okay. So anyway, it's a harrowing reminder that Denke preyed on the vulnerable, those who wouldn't be missed, and he seemed to have carefully chosen his victims, targeting people who lacked strong ties to the community or family members who might raise the alarm.
What was even more unsettling is that Denke seemed to have turned his victims into products.
Ew.
Yeah, things he was selling. When the police came and broke into his house to arrest him, they found that he was using skin to make leather goods, like belts and suspenders, and even like selling pieces for shoes and stuff, and that he was repurposing the bones, turning them into tools and jewelry and things like that, things that they used to use for bones. And the evidence was really unsettling because he was pickling the human meat, not into pig's feet. My grandmother never ate human's meat, but he was disguising it as pork and feeding it to customers at his shop and selling it around town.
You see, this is the point where you got to say, did he develop that first idea that for serial killers their motto is everyone needs a hobby?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, they say human meat tastes like chicken. Now he's saying human meat tastes like pork. I don't want to know, but
what compels people to want? I think it's power, people who eat human flesh. There must be, unless you're like have crashed into the Andes with an airplane, and you're trying to survive, and you're living off, your poor deceased flight mates. I mean, I can't see any reason that anybody would feel compelled, other than that it's some weird sense of power they're somehow trying to attain. Experience.
Yeah, unless they're like into eating dog doctors, and then they'd be veterinarians.
I don't get that.
Well, they're you have vegetarians,
and then they're oh God, that's so awful.
Or if they eat people at war, and then they'd be terrarians.
But
Never
once
mind.
again, we digress.
Yeah, it's off.
Or
off.
should we say egress? I'm
Yeah,
not sure at
let's-
this point, but can you imagine
Let's not eat people.
Can you imagine people were wearing belts and eating meat, never knowing they came from as victims? It's straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah, can you imagine that? It's like that Sweetie Todd thing, the demon barber's Fleet Street.
It is very much like that in a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I don't think he made pies, though. Maybe he didn't have the dough. I'm so sorry. When he was arrested, but not before he could fully interrogate or be tried. He hanged himself in a cell the day after he was arrested. You know, I hate it when people get off by suicide. You know, it's like other people don't get their justice, or at least their feeling of justice, when people who commit crimes like
And
hang themselves.
it's very hard a lot of the times to find out the motive as to why they were doing what they were doing.
Right. There's so many unanswered questions. There's so many things that, you know, you don't know. You never even know how many crimes he actually committed before he started stacking bones.
Right. How
You don't
many
know.
other victims? Yeah.
Right. And you don't even know. Maybe missing people that people loved were part of his. I mean, you know, vagrants have mothers, and, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a case that leaves you wondering, how did he go unnoticed for so long, and how did a quiet old man in a small town manage to kill so many people and turn their remains into everyday items without raising any suspicion? Despite Denke's detailed records, police came to believe there were even more victims unaccounted for, especially considering the large number of body parts found at his home, with estimates as high as 42 or even more. A detailed police report of the remains found at Denke's house included... Okay, ready? Here we go.
Bum-ba-da-da!
2 shoulder blades, a pair of collarbones, 16 femurs, of which 1 pair of remarkably strong ones, 2 pairs of very thin ones, 6 pairs of
try not to sing it.
femurs, 15 medium-sized pieces of long bones, 4 pairs of elbow bones, 7 heads of radii, 9 lower parts of radii, 8 lower parts of the elbow, a pair of upper shin bone, a pair of lower elbows and radii, of which extremities still remain well connected, a pair
Ew.
of upper arms and a pair of upper arm heads, 8 heels and ankle bones, 120 toes and phalanx, 65 feet and metacarpal bones, and 5 first ribs and 150 pieces of ribs. Police also found the pickaxe Denke had used to attack Oliver, as well as several knives that might have been murder weapons, and saw the killer used
And a saw.
and a saw the killer used to dismember the bodies of his victims.
Can you imagine before chainsaws, when these poor serial killers had to do it the old-fashioned way?
Some people still do.
Ew. I guess dismembering a body is not easy. I mean, I've had to cut chicken apart just to, like, cook it, and it's not easy to cut chicken with scissors, like with cooking scissors.
Yeah.
I can't imagine cutting a cow apart, never mind a person or something. Anyway,
And no doubt he did it with zeal.
what is zeal?
Like zest.
I know what zeal is. I was thinking it's like some kind of product. Okay. Subsequent to the police investigations, after the police investigations, they found that he had obtained permission from city to sell shoelaces door to door.
From the city officials, he got permission.
Right. And and they had been made of hair. He had like braided hair into shoelaces.
Oh.
And he had been selling them. And can you imagine that? He probably told people they were horsetail shoelaces or something. But they were so soft. And they also found out that 2 other victims had escaped, but they were so afraid they never told anyone. And somebody else also was in prison for his crimes at one point.
Who was that? That was Edward Troutman or something, right? Or
Edward
Trotman.
Sander.
Okay.
Sanders. Yeah.
No, wait. It was Edward Troutman. He was the butcher in prison for the murder of Emma Sanders.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Emma Sanders. She was the sister of Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and he had previously been released in 1922.
Like the same age.
I love Bernie. Oh, this is great. He was released in 1922 for good behavior.
Yeah, but I love Bernie Sanders. Don't get me wrong. He had been released for good behavior. Yeah, and but then he ended up Denke's ledger, right? He ended up being actually killed by him. Some residents remember Denke operated the shop from where he sold meats and soon suspected the possibility the killer may have sold human flesh. And I mean, come on, that's only like obvious, right? Like, where was he getting the meat?
Where he sold the meat, this is your favorite, I know, was Rocklaw Weekly Market. Not Rocklaw. Rocklaw.
This guy moved in there. He bought the area, and afterward, it was destroyed in World War II, and several skulls and human bones were unearthed by the new Polish owners of the house. Although much of his life and his motives still a mystery because he killed himself and everything. Nobody really knows what happened, but people are still speculating in that town and in that area because of, like, in the war, in World War II, with all the stuff that came up about him. People just keep wondering what's going on. They keep talking about it, even though it's been like 100 years ago.
That's one way to make a legacy for yourself.
Yeah, a legacy, and a headacy, and a armacy, and a beltacy.
I know we have pressed on with some true crime. I think after this, I'd really like to get back to something just plain spooky and horrifying.
Can you imagine how haunted that area must be?
It must be.
Yeah.
I mean, any place where there's been that much death in that concentrated a time. Mm-hmm. There must be all sorts of manifestations and ghosts that have gone on, unless somebody's gone through and sweepingly cleared the whole place.
Well, it's like hospitals. Mm-hmm. Hospitals are incredibly haunted.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, aside from the fact that people are sick in hospitals, I think that's why a lot of people don't want to, inherently don't even like to visit hospitals, because they have that creepy feeling when they're in hospitals. If you go to a hospital, even just go there and walk through without being sick, without knowing anyone there, just go to a hospital and walk through, you get this creepy feeling.
Well, people, when they walk through concentration camps, like Auschwitz, they get this horrible feeling.
Did you know that, and I may be mistaken, but I don't believe I am, that some of the areas of concentration camps, they're taking down the worst part of what you see, of what had been seen before. They're taking down barracks, they're taking down some of the stuff, and they're making it less horrifying when you visit.
Oh, that's rather odd, isn't it?
Yeah, I should. Well,
Why would you sanitize a place that's well, anyway?
Well, it's that idea people don't want to know anymore, which is sad. They say if you forget history, it repeats itself, and I don't doubt
that for a second. I mean,
I don't doubt that for a second. Yeah. But like when I was in the hospital and that nurse kept walking by the door, and I thought to myself, what is this? Why is she dressed like that? Is she like in a costume or something?
And she just wasn't there.
You were the
only one who saw her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've seen other times too, when you were in the hospital and a cold breeze came by the table, and
and
you said, "There's a ghost at my head," and I looked, and the IV was swinging back and forth and back and forth.
And I got to tell them about the story about my grandmother when my grandmother was passing, and the priest came to give her the last rites. Remember that?
I wasn't there.
Oh gosh, my grandmother.
You were young at the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I was like very young, and my grandmother was passing away. And this priest came into the hospital to give my grandma. Now, nothing wrong about Catholics. It was just this priest, okay? He came in to give my grandmother the last rites. My mother was there. My mother was a staunch born-again Christian, very very religious, and she even was religious Catholic. She was, I say born-again Christian, and they're not usually Catholic friendly, but she was. Anyhow, we were all sitting there, and this priest comes in to give my grandmother the last rites. And he walked in, and when he walked into the hospital room, everything got cold. And everything smelled foul. It smelled like the guy had vomited all over himself and messed his pants. It was bad. And when he went up and started giving my grandmother the last rites, she had been unconscious, and all of a sudden she started going, and started like writhing in her bed. Oof. And he was praying over, and he put ashes on her forehead and everything, the usual last rites. And she looked like she was like trying to get away from him. Mm-hmm. And then when he left, all the smell and all the coal and everything went with him. And my grandmother settled right down, and my mother looked at me and she said, "That wasn't a priest. That was a demon." Yeah. And I couldn't believe that came out of my mother's mouth.
Even your mother felt it.
Even my mother felt it. Oh. And so right away, my mother called her pastor and everything, and she's like, my mother's going to go to hell. A demon just came and gave her the last rites. And then my mother called my sister. My sister called a different Catholic church and had them come in and do last rites on my grandmother.
Nice.
And everything. My grandmother was okay with that one. And then, but when my grandmother was dying, before she got that bad, she asked me to get, my grandmother was very afraid of dying. She asked me if I could get a Catholic priest, every Protestant person I could get.
This was where the joke came from. Okay.
Every Protestant minister I could get. She also wanted me to see if I could get a rabbi. She wanted to see if I could get a...
Just throw the work set.
Yeah. She wanted to see if I could get an imam. She wanted to see if I could...
Oh, my God.
Every single religion you could think of. She wanted to see if I could get one of them in to bless her in case she picked the wrong heaven.
Oh. You want velvet? We got the velvet.
Here,
we have a nice Presbyterian home.
My grandmother was exceedingly practical.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you can hear in the background here, our Kaik bird is singing away along with the Quaker parrot and the little budgerigard.
Kaiks are amazing birds. If you have a chance to get one, they are so cool. The first day we had our kaik, we did not know. No one told us that they sleep on their backs.
Thought it was dead.
We thought it was dead. We got up in the morning. It was lying on its back. We're like, oh my God, it died. And then it jumped up. What? Me? Dead?
Highly recommend you get a kaik. They're very self-entertaining.
Yeah, except this one also likes to make the sound of our cell phone sending a message.
Or like a tweet.
Yeah, it sends a tweet, and it's the bird tweeting.
When Twitter used to be cool, yeah. So, dear listeners...
Yep, that's about it for us.
That's about it for us today. So we're going to ask you, please like us. Please leave a comment. Subscribe. It's how we grow the channel.
Yep. It really helps us a lot if you like, if you subscribe, if you leave a comment. The algorithm does good.
Yeah, and for those who've left comments, thank you very much. And for those who've been listening to us, we really appreciate your patronage. And we hope you come back again for our next episode, number 42. That'll be coming down the road shortly. Be well, everyone. We wish you a week of hope and wonder.
And springtime weather. Unless you're in Australia, then, We love our Australian listeners.
Be good, be safe. Until next time, when we see you in the Spooky Coop.